Welcome to His Author's Voice. I am Jack Sanger. These podcasts contain extracts from my writing of the last 40 years or so. Each is accompanied with comments, clarifications, and or digressions. The purpose? To entertain, to entice. The full original publications can all be found on my website www.jacksanger.com. Now let me introduce podcast number 1. Hot Flushes. Set 15 years before the millennium, the novel is about a group of women's reaction and retaliation when they discover their husbands have collaborated in starting affairs. In this piece, we find Brenda, shocked by her husband's infidelity, trying to find equanimity and solace at a cosmetics counter in a store. Brenda felt sick as she boarded for the first time one of those funny little minibuses to the city centre. She tried to persuade herself that she was physically unwell, but knew that it was psychosomatic. She shoehorned herself in behind the driver and was thankful that the bus wasn't crowded. Here she was, 5 feet 4 inches of prime womanhood. No, not prime. It made her sound like steak. She went off at a tangent. John sometimes called her his big lamb chop. He used to like her size. He'd grab her buttocky bulk in his gin-trap hands and burrow his dark curls between her large breasts, mumbling about what a man-sized handful she was. Now what? Something in his brain, the incoherent, lusting hind part bit, was suddenly not firing its signals to his body. She tried again to be positive and assertive, like they had attempted to make Annie be the other night. 5 feet 4 inches of mature... No, that sounded ancient. Perfect? No, that was obviously a lie. She thought for a while as the bus crawled in traffic round the mosque. Her mind read it as though she was preparing a small ad for the personal columns. She smiled as playful appeared. 5 feet 4 inches of playful womanhood. The smile, such as it was, fizzled as an older man caught her eye in that hopeful way that losers do. She tried not to look playful again until she alighted at the Assizes Hall. With an over-demonstrative bounce in her stride and over-expressive smile upon her face, she skirted the marketplace. Her roundness and many-layered covering of tie-dyed gauze suddenly made her feel like brightly daubed tumbleweed. Anyway, she thought, she was 5'4" of pretty dynamic energy when she was in heat. The only problem was how to reignite it in herself. She had to fight back. She wouldn't lose John, she knew. He was so hopeless emotionally. He'd soon come back all tired and stressed. But she wanted him to come back to a very ascendant female, capable of exacting the most favourable terms from his self-inflicted misery. She went into the big department store at the bottom of the market and had her face made up. "You've got a very nice bone structure," said the 20-year-old without moving her lips. Brenda figured it was because she had so many veneers of paintwork laminated over her not nice, boneless puppy fat. She also knew what the 20-year-old was thinking. It was that her own bonework had a lot to do to emerge from its own insulation. "Very elegant indeed. What I call royal." The young ventriloquist could probably drink coffee and still talk in this strange, robotic way. As she dropped these sentences through the unmoving slit of her mouth, she worked her way round Brenda's face, building from foundation to top surface in a sure similitude of her own protective visage. When she had finished, she sat back and stared at her new clone. "Done," she said. Brenda tried to smile her thanks and found that the smile could be made to slide effortlessly around under the surface. She felt she was smiling, but the outer layers did not even offer a ghostly trace of it. She was so pleased with the new waxwork look, she bought a whole tub of the hardening cream. and went out along the main shopping walk. It was still quite hot and the marketplace was full of shoppers. A borough refuse lorry was picking up rotting fruit, cabbage leaves and paper and polystyrene packing materials. One of the men whistled at her and grinned. She snarled her best feminist hatred at him beneath the surface and ignored the suggestive caress of his forefinger in the O made by those of his other hand. She turned abruptly into Victorian Penny Arcade and quickened her step. Each time she passed a mirror or mirror-like glass, she caught sight of the face of the woman in the store staring back. The fixed values of a 20-year-old. Even her most aggressive snarl was smothered by its plastic resiliency. Good. With this mask she could take on the world. Brenda the impassive, Brenda the poker player, after years of not being able to hide her feelings. The Victorian Penny Arcade had just been refurbished and was looking sprucely otherworldly. Sun filtered down through the glass. The shops on either side were becoming more precious. Apart from the toy shop, though this had moved to the corner, it had not changed its overstuffed nursery untidiness. She could see as she passed by the children thronging it and trying out its delights. The years of being dragged round that shop every Saturday morning were long past, and she felt tearful at the thought. Yet her face resisted it. The tears stopped at the barrier of plastic and seemed to become reabsorbed. She had no trouble in parading through the Penny Arcade without a hint to the outside world of what she was feeling, which turned out to be just as well, because at that moment, that precise, suddenly confident, bland-faced moment, she walked into John. Her John. John with his arm linked like some long-time married man to that of a mousy-haired, skinny creature with freckles, high heels and skin-tight trousers. Brenda took it all in with a haughty glance, the mortar of her face treatment giving her a cool white aloofness. John, on the other hand, went bright red, dropped his arm from the woman's, and took a step back as though he feared being attacked. "Oh, hello, John," she said sweetly. "Haven't seen you for ages. We must meet up, you know. Maybe for a drink one evening, if your wife doesn't mind." She cocked her head quizzically at the female object, still desperately trying to re-establish herself like a mollusk to John's arm, and staring bemusedly from one to the other. "I'm not." "No, she's not," said John helplessly. "Oh, sorry. Don't worry, John. I won't tell anyone. A bit on the side, eh? Well, why not? No doubt you deserve it, don't you? Handsome fella like you. What's loyalty these days, anyway? Not worth the marriage contract it's written on, is it? Have your fun while you can, I say. The end of the road isn't that far off when you've reached the roaring 40s after all." As she said these things, Brenda's confidence grew, as did her famed mimicry. She was now standing in belligerent male posture, legs braced apart and a hand on a hip, the other gunning about her. John was making an attempt to gather himself. Look. Better not chat, John. Got lots to do, you know. Have to buy my daughter's birthday present before I meet someone for coffee. Annie. I don't know whether you've met her. She smiled deliciously, knowing that there would be only the faintest of ripples across the surface of her facade. Then she floated on, round the corner, and headed towards the bookshop where she hoped to buy something. There we have it. An excerpt from Hot Flushes. What happened next? How did Brenda and her friends Annie and Joan create their own counterculture? The law of unintended consequences comes to mind. As I said at the outset, you can find the answers to these and questions you haven't even asked yet at www.jacksanger.com. Thank you for listening. Till next time. Bye-bye.